Wow. If you thought that the worst it could get for young adult novel adaptations in theaters this year was Fifth Wave and Allegiant, those two look like masterpieces compared to Maximum Ride. Where do I even begin with this? Okay, Maximum Ride is an adaptation to a James Patterson novel and a book series, I believe. I have never read it, but you don't have to read the book to enjoy a movie. You shouldn't have to read a book to enjoy a movie or have to play a video game in order to understand and enjoy a movie based off a video game, and so on and so forth. So I feel confident in knowing that I don't have to read the book in order to enjoy the movie. But man, this movie tries its hardest for you not to enjoy it. So what is it about? Well, it's about these 6 children that had experiments done on them, or they are some sort of experiment where they have bird wings in their back that retract into them and come out whenever they need them. So yeah, they have this scar tissue on their back and wings come out. But anyway, they're hiding in this cabin in the middle of the woods. Well, it's a pretty big house. It's a nice house. One of the scientists that had been working in this facility that created them, he had taken them away and put them in this cabin where they could be safe and away from people trying to find them or doing more experiments on them. He's disappeared. They've been alone for quite some time, and now they have to decide what they're going to do. Well, before they can even decide what they should do, whether they should stay or venture out or whatnot, people come, take the youngest, or one of the youngest ones, takes her away, and now they have to go out, find them, get back to the facility, recapture her, and so on and so forth. Yeah, that's pretty much the whole story. They're in the woods, bad people come, take one of them away, they have to venture out, save that one person, and that's pretty much the whole story. Okay, if you watch any of my movie reviews, I like to try to stick to the positives first and then get to the negatives. But sometimes I really can't find any positives to a movie. I feel when it comes to movies, I'm more of an optimist. I can find some really good things in some really terrible movies. I try to look for something good, and if I can find something that's at least good, something I enjoyed, then I can't give it 0 stars. The best thing I could say about this movie is, if put in the right hands, if given the right budget, maybe it could have been okay. Maybe it could have been better if enhanced by better action, a better director, better acting, better visuals. Maybe it could have been something. But as it stands right now, it's pretty much appalling. So really, that's not that much of a positive. It's just a what could have been sort of scenario. There is one measly little thing I could say about something good, something positive, other than what could have been, because there are some scenes in it, especially one of them with our main girl. She's sitting in bed and looking at her wings. She's learned more about herself, and the wings slowly come out of her body and stuff, and she's looking at them. That could have been an interesting scene if done right and wasn't full of laughable CGI. But there's another scene where an actress actually gives a performance. Okay, the scene itself, bad. Very short too, so it's not that much of a positive. The dialogue, awful. Very forced, very... No, stop. The only measly good thing about that very forgettable small scene is one of the actresses gives a performance. It's the only time in the entire movie where the facial expressions aren't alien or blank. It's the only time I saw actual freaking emotion in some of the characters, and in the eyes and the face. She could probably work as an actress if she does better, but you know what? She's one of the most minor characters of the entire film, and so you don't get much of her, and her character is annoying. But she gives one moment in this entire movie where her facial expression looks different from everything else because it's actually trying. It's a very small scene with the character I'm talking about is a girl named Nudge. She's one of the middle-aged characters of the film. Well, not middle-aged. I mean, most of them are all young adults and teenagers and younger. She's in the middle of the age range because there's like 3 of them that are young adults, probably about 18 or so. She's probably about 13, 14, I don't know. I'm terrible with ages. And then the other 2 are the youngest, which are probably like 10, 11, whatnot. But in this scene, Nudge wants to be a normal teen, which doesn't quite make sense because she's always been in either a lab, on the run, or in a cabin. So how would she know what a normal teen is like? Unless they've been watching videos or something. I don't know, it didn't really say. It looks like this place doesn't have a lot of communication, but then again, she must have the internet because earlier on she was looking at a jacket that a store had and she wanted to escape the cabin to get this jacket, though she might not have any money, so I don't know how she was going to get it unless she was going to steal it and bring more attention. That unnecessary... Forget it. I'm thinking too much into this terrible movie. But anyway, she wants to be a normal teen, and so she's sad and is like, oh, I just want to be a normal teen. She gives a good performance in her face. Dialogue is crap, but then again, most of the dialogue is crap in this movie. That's one little thing, but that's something you'd expect from a normal movie. It's not much of a positive when it's something you should be expecting from a movie. The rest, just abysmal. Amateurish, messy, painful to look at. I can only imagine fans of the series, fans of the book. I'm not even a fan. I've never read the book, and it's painful to watch. I can only imagine people that love the book are just gonna die on the inside when they see this movie, or at least most people probably will. Some will be in denial, or some will actually like it because people like different things. So from my positives of this movie, you can probably already guess what this movie is going to get, but let's get into why I think it's such a bad movie. And this is where I truly don't know where to start, because this is one of those movies where I can do an in-depth review, go through the whole thing, pick it apart. This has enough material to probably even be a 3-part video. It's that bad. But let's try and get through it. Let's try and list off some of the things that I just don't like and have a short review. And if you're interested in wanting a deeper review, then leave it in the comments, and maybe I will when I'm not frickin' busy and behind on so many movie reviews. The acting. Alien. Forced. Awkward. I know there's a bunch of people in this film that are no names, people that haven't either done a movie before or done very few. There are a few of these teenagers, of these young adults, that have done quite a few movies, but none that have been big budget, none that have been really mainstream, except for one kid who happened to be in Project Almanac. I think that's the only big movie that I recognized from any of these characters. So I understand you can't expect much, but just don't be so alien and awkward and painful to look at. And it's not funny bad acting, it's just painful, eye-rolling groaning acting. Like, there are times in this movie where I thought I was watching aliens trying to interpret human emotion. It's sometimes that bad. And the worst of which is, unfortunately, our main actress. Unfortunately, she's probably the worst of the bunch. Now, I've heard some really awkward, really weird dialogue in a movie, but never one so consistently either expository or just plain forced or awkward and meaningless. Even the narration at the very beginning of the movie is just confusing, awkward, and makes no sense. Like, after the first scene where they escape the facility, after the opening credits, then we get this dream sequence. Or is it dream sequence or is it future seeing? Because it's never quite explained in the movie. Like, you can think maybe she's seeing the future, but how is it, who's narrating? Is it her future self narrating and then her dreaming? Is she dreaming, narrating this scene that she's future seeing? Or that's confusing by itself. But there's this awkwardly long, overdrawn pause in the narration. First, she talks about how running is all she's ever known, which doesn't quite make sense given the context. This is why I wonder if the narration is from the future, because it doesn't feel like something you would dream up in the present, because in the present, she hasn't been running, really. All her life, she's been either in the lab or in the cabin. That's not much of a running my whole life scenario. But she says something along the lines where she's learned one important thing, and it's the only thing you have to know. And there's this long pause. I didn't count how long it was, but it was probably close to a minute where there's this long pause, and then she even says, instead of actually saying what she learned, she goes, "It's the only thing you have to know." It's like, okay, but what is it? What have you learned? What is this gratifying experience you've learned, oh wise narrator? It's as simple as there's always a way out. What grand wisdom. That's what you left me hanging for? The dialogue is just... And it's even worse whenever it's our main girl and the love interest, because the love interest is supposed to be the badass male character of the six. But anyway, the two of them are together whenever they try small talk, whenever they're not talking about the mission or what they have to do, whenever they're talking small talk or trying to be personable, it is so awkward and just cringeworthy. You know what? I'm going to let the dialogue speak for itself. How about you just listen to it and see what you think?
Yeah, I'm going to need breakfast first.
Good choice.
You're right. 1 cookie's a snack, 2's a meal. So quiet here. It's weird.
Yeah. Gives you time to think.
About what?
Anything you want.
And you know what? This is what passes for romantic in this movie. Because there's no sort of chemistry whatsoever with these two characters, and then suddenly he goes in for a kiss at one moment, and it just comes out of nowhere. Because, well, I guess it doesn't come out of nowhere, because she almost dies, and he obviously cares about her, even though she got shot in the shoulder, and she didn't look like she was dying, she was just passing out, and he's like, "You gotta stay awake for me, Max, stay awake." He says that about 20 times in one scene. You gotta stay awake, Max. That was annoying too. dialogue is just freaking terrible. Awful. And the action scenes. What action scenes? Everything gets done really fast and there's like nothing to the fight scenes or any sort of action, to the point where it feels like there's no action in this entire movie. That's how minimal it is. And there's like 4 action scenes in this movie, give or take, and it feels like there's none. And it's full of slow-mo, clearly to boost the time, because it's only about an hour and 27 minutes long. Didn't feel like it, felt more. It even has moments where there's slow-mo to look badass or cool, but it just looks awkward because it's in a weird camera angle that isn't conventional, and it just makes it feel like, what is this slow-mo even doing? What's the point of this slow-mo? Oh, to increase the time of the movie, the runtime. Gotcha. That's the only reason it's in it, right? Yeah, it is. I've also never seen a movie like this where it's so predictable yet so freaking confusing and feeling like the experiments themselves are meaningless. Clearly, they're meant to have more movies for the book series, and they don't want to give away every information about it, and they're going to progress the information, and you're going to learn more as the movies come out. But I'm guessing this movie's going to be the only one, and so you're never going to learn anything unless you read the books. It just makes me feel like, why? What's the point of this? Why are they making people with wings? Okay? What's the point of this? And what's the point of that? And what are you doing? And it feels like it forms the same cliches of some of the other young adult movies that have passed. Like the twist in Maze Runner is pretty much in Maximum Ride, about how them escaping is all part of the test. There's even one point where it feels like our main characters forget what the plot is and what the mission is. Because, okay, our main hero gets hurt. She gets injured. She has to get healed. But she's sort of... I don't know what the reason is. I'm guessing it was because she wants a normal teenage life and she can possibly get it after she gets healed. So she hesitates on whether she should save the person she was so adamant in saving. Like, it's like she forgets that, oh right, I really wanted to save the younger child. I really wanted to go out and save her and free her from the horrible experiments that must be happening to her right now. No, let's just have a normal teenage life and just stick here. Like, she almost forgets the reason why she's left in the first place. The pacing, the plot is so simple. You could have a fast-paced thriller action thing with this simple premise, but you don't. It's so slowly paced out and just boring to sit through. And the worst part of this movie, the CGI. I understand this is a low-budget piece. They don't have the budget to make really good-looking CGI. But you know what? I've seen better CGI on YouTube videos and movies with probably far less budget than this movie. This almost... The wings themselves, okay, when it comes out of their body, all I could think about, honestly, was the wings of the birds on Birdemic. Look, that might be an over-exaggeration, but that's what it felt like to me when I was watching the film. Look, you know what? I'm just going to let the CGI speak for itself. Just take a look at this one scene and see how much you can stand it. Now imagine all the wings being like that. Imagine all the flights being like that. Imagine all the slow motion that sort of marvels at its CGI when it's painful to look at. Sure, you can feel bad for him for having a low budget, but at the same time, if you had the low budget and you knew this movie needed a bigger budget, why'd you go on through it anyway? Why'd you still make it? Why didn't you just like give up on it if you didn't have the budget? Oh, because they can cash in on a young adult novel adaptation that's obviously probably really popular and get tons of cash the first week. I'm really struggling to find anything remotely good or decent about this film. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll like some things of it. I just didn't, and I felt it was very painful to watch, and this is easily among one of the worst films I've seen all year. This is on the same amateurish level of Meet the Blacks and Norm of the North. I mean, at least 50 Shades of Black had quality to it. It was a terrible movie to watch, and I didn't like anything about it, so it's still a 0, but at least out of the 0-star movies, that's the one movie that looks like a movie. Sorry, Maximum Ride. Maybe you could have been better, but I'm gonna give you 0 stars. Absolute 0. Didn't like it. It was painful to watch, and I'm not even a fan of the books because I've never even read them. So, to all of you fans of Maximum Ride, may God have mercy on your soul if you decide to watch this film. So, did you see Maximum Ride? What'd you think about it? Go ahead and comment below. I'm all ears. And if you like this video and you want to see more, please subscribe and check out my movie reviews of 2015 and 2016. As always, this is Bruce Gifford, and this was Just My Opinion.